Welcome back to the After Hours podcast. I'm your host, Francisco Delator. Co-host today, I have Joey Prohaska, and we're joined with Joe Bell from the Peanut Barrel up in East Lansing, Michigan. What's going on, Joe?
Well, we've got a beautiful day here today. Temperatures in the low 70s. We've got sunshine, or at least the amount of sunshine that the California fires will let us have. And we're enjoying a nice day. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. You know, me and Joey are actually both from Michigan. So, I saw that you were from East Lansing, and I was like, yeah, you just got to get this guy on the show. So thanks for being a part of it.
I was a little surprised at your call, but I'm pleased that we had a chance to talk.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things where, COVID is, it's really affected the way that we did podcasts. We used to do them in person and usually go around to our local favorite breweries, distilleries, and bars. But, we've now had the chance to expand our horizons a little bit and, reach out to places we haven't had before. So it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, yeah. I guess we'll get right into it. How'd you first get into the bar industry?
Oh, my. Well, that was a number of years ago. Back in the early 70s, I was a student at Michigan State. They had a program called Hotel and Restaurant Management. After a little stint in the military, I finished my college at MSU in that program. And towards the end of that program, it was important that we knew what we were getting into. So we started working in the industry. And most of us at that time would either had come from the bar, restaurant, hotel industry, or were interested in it. And I was interested. And so I found a job locally, and I found that I'd made the right choice with my college education, and ended up working in the industry as a result of that.
Very nice. I don't know many people that go to school for hospitality. Can you give us a little rundown on some of the courses you took?
Oh boy, that was quite a long time ago.
Yeah, it might be a stretch. Sorry.
No. I mean, the courses, there's marketing and sales, there's housekeeping, there is front of the house procedures. There is restaurant and bar management, to include the kinds of bookkeeping and considerations that you would have for working with the numbers with regard to the business. And then there's just the standard all-around education that everybody gets at a university. The first couple of years are pretty similar for everybody, and I was a part of that.
Right. Very nice. And with that being said, so you said that you went to Michigan State up in East Lansing, and it seems you found a home there. Are you originally from Michigan?
Yes, I didn't grow up too far from East Lansing. I grew up in a small town called Mason, which is about 10 miles south. Before my term in the military, I spent a couple of years at a local community college, and then after leaving the military, went to Michigan State to finish my undergraduate.
Right. Very nice. Very nice.
So how long have you been in operation?
Well, this business has been open since November of 1973. And I was there the day it opened. So I guess you'd have to say almost 50 years that I have been associated on and off with this particular business. There's been a name change. There's been a footprint change a couple of different times. The concept has basically stayed the same. So 50 years almost. It'll be 50 years next year.
Very cool. And when did you take over as the owner?
My wife and I bought the business in 1980, July. Originally, if you want a little story behind it.
Absolutely.
The Peanut Barrel was originally opened in 73 as a Jack's or Better restaurant. And Jack's or Better, it was a small chain back in the early 70s. Most of those restaurants were in the real Midwest, Kansas, Missouri, that area. But one of the partners was from Williamston, which is close to East Lansing as well. He wanted a place in East Lansing, so he made arrangements with his partners to open the Jack's or Better in 1973. His name is Gordon Smith. He and his wife Carol lived in Portland, Michigan. I've kind of lost track of him now. His background originally was Howard Johnson's, and he was the fellow that created the concept called the ground round, which was back in the 80s, I want to say, 70s maybe, and 80s, was a popular offshoot from Howard Johnson's. It was hamburgers, beer, a full bar, peanuts, and the concept that ultimately ended up as the Peanut Barrel came from that ground round concept that he created. The name changed to the Peanut Barrel in 1975. He had kind of a falling out with his partners. And so it was decided that he would drop the name Jack's Are Better. And in 75, it became the Peanut Barrel. Peanut Barrel name, sometimes people will ask me, well, where did that name come from? And it came from, he had a cart that he'd had in his barn out in Portland for, who knows how many years. On the cart was a big barrel. And he thought, well, we're selling peanuts, and I've got a barrel, and it's on a cart. I think I'm going to name this place the Peanut Barrel and bring that thing in there and stick it in the front of the house. And that's what he did. And so for a number of years, we did have that cart, but it did kind of go by the wayside. Hence the name, the Peanut Barrel.
I mean, it makes sense, right? You got peanuts and you got some barrels, so yeah, put them together.
Yep, that was it exactly.
So, Joe, being on Grand River in Michigan State, East Lansing area, you guys get a lot of college students, or is it a little bit of mix of college and older people, or what's your general demographic?
Our business might be a little unusual for the bar restaurant business in East Lansing in that we do attract all ages. It's a place where students, faculty, staff, townies all seem to want to gather together, and they all seem to get along for the most part. And we've been very lucky that has allowed us to keep our sales kind of steady, where a lot of college town businesses, especially bars and restaurants, when the students leave, they drop off quite a bit. Ours doesn't. Mm-hmm. We stay pretty steady throughout the entire year. You might even say that when the students are gone, we do even better than when they're here. So we get a little bit of everybody.
That's pretty unusual for a college town bar. You know, you'd expect that during, football season, during the school year, that's when you're going to be at your height and your peaks. But it's really great to see that you can attract all demographics really and continue steady business.
We worked at it right from the very beginning. We also thought it was important to sell food right from the beginning, and that has paid off. It has allowed us the opportunity to attract not just the nighttime drink business, but the daytime restaurant business and evening restaurant business as well. So that's been a good deal for us. And it kind of helps with the differing crowd that we cater to.
And Joe, speaking of that, what type of food do you guys offer at Peanut Barrel?
Well, I guess you would call it standard pub food, standard bar food. Burgers, chickens, sandwiches, chili soup, salads, peanuts, and that sort of thing. Yeah. So our menu is a little bit unusual, but not terribly. I might like to say that our food is a little higher quality than what you might find in many small bars and restaurants. We use all fresh product. We do an awful lot of prep in the store, and we make sure that the products that we have to buy, that we're using the best available from the best vendors available.
That all sounds great, Joe. If you were to recommend one menu item from Peanut Barrel, what would it be?
Well, there are two very popular items, so I'm going to give you two, even though you want one. The first one is the rodeo burger, and that is a bacon cheeseburger. which has been a standby for us for years and years. The second one would be the olive burger, and that's kind of akin to the Midwest. Some even say that the Lansing, Michigan area has more olive burgers than anybody around. And I think that may be true because there's probably 15 places in this area that sell olive burgers. And basically, it's just olives in a sauce, our secret sauce, of course. And it's very popular. Those two are the most popular burgers that we sell. And you can, of course, get those on a chicken breast as well. So you can create your sandwich that way.
Yeah, it all sounds really good, and Joey and I can eat. So when we come through, we're gonna have to get a little bit of everything. What's a really good sandwich?
Well, the best sandwich I think would be the tuna melt. Some people prefer the veggie, and others prefer the turkey melt. And those are basically grilled sandwiches with there's cheese on all of them, and the cheese is melted. And then the other ingredients, either turkey, bacon, and cheese on a turkey melt, or tuna on a tuna melt. And the veggie is just a combination of cheese and a lot of different vegetables. Those are good sandwiches.
Yeah, it all sounds really good. What kind of, I guess, what's your drink selection to go along with the food? Do you guys bring in, local like IPAs, or you guys stick pretty standard?
We have a dozen beers on tap, and we are both national brands and local, and we have a couple of craft beers that are not local. But if you're from the Michigan area, you probably have a feel for the Bell's Brewery, and we do a fair amount of business with them. We do business with Perrin. We do business with a brewery out of Sheboygan. There's a brand that they sell that we really like called Blood Orange. And then we'll sell something that's even close to macro. You might call it a macro fat tire. And then the standard full domestics, I call them domestics, even though one of them is brewed in Canada, that would be Labatt's, Miller Lite. There's a little brewery right down the road called Old Nation, and they have a beer. It's kind of a dry hop New England style IPA called M43. That might be our second most popular beer, and that's just 10 miles down the road.
Yeah, I've had M43. It's quite good, so yeah. I can attest to that. So you've been in business for a little while now. What would you say is the biggest difference from when you originally started to 2020? Not specifically the year 2020, but
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2020, you can't compare. 2019 would be a better comparison. When I first got in the business, excuse me, everybody smoked, and the bars were filled with smoke. And one of the things that you had to do was to attract non-smokers, you had to have smoke eaters in your place. And probably, I don't know how old you guys are, but you may or may not remember a time when that was the case in a lot of bars and restaurants. And then you could have a smoking section, and that didn't really work because the smoke would still drift into that section. But
right.
And then ultimately, the states slowly but surely started going non-smoking, and that happened in Michigan in 2009. So that made a big change. That actually cut back our liquor and beer business and increased our food business. And as a result of that, families started coming in. We started seeing a lot more larger groups with children, and that kind of surprised us. And so that has been some of the changes that we've seen down through the years. There has also been different times of the day when people like to drink. And I don't know if that's just because I've gotten older and maybe some of my clientele is older, but I think that many of us are finding that the late night bar crowd is not as prevalent as it once was, and that the afternoon, what we might call the day drinker, those people are out a little bit more now than what they used to be. And I'm not exactly sure why that happened, but it did. And it may be just akin to our store. But I kind of have a feeling that it's kind of growing with a lot of different places. Now, this year, it's even more prevalent because a lot of people are staying home. I'm noticing that a lot of my competitors are closing as early as 8 or 9 o'clock at night. They're just going, that's it. The day is over. And that I find to be quite a difference from when I first got in the business.
Hey, nothing wrong with a little day drinking, all right?
I'm with you guys.
Yes, sir. I mean, I think that's
I think it's pretty standard across.
Yeah.
I've noticed in the past few years, at least since we've like finished up college, that people went from kind of going out at 8, 9 to maybe 2, 3, 4 now.
Yeah.
A little bit more often. Even before Corona started, it seemed that like you said, the day crowd has been becoming more prevalent in the past few years.
I think that's the case. I agree with you guys.
I think part of it too is people now now it's like, all right, going out at 11 is too late. And I don't know why that is. I mean, I'm a night owl personally, but a lot of people that are specifically that I hang out with and I know, they like to start going out around like 6 or 7. I don't know if it's just to get more drinking time in or what, but yeah, I've noticed that as well.
It may have to do with the responsibilities that they have the next day too. I have a feeling that in this day and age, young people are a lot more serious than they were maybe 20, 30 years ago. And the requirements and the productivity that is required of young people today is greater, perhaps, than what it was. And as a result, the late nights are not as easy to take as the earlier nights. That's kind of part of my thinking anyway.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And thank you for the kind words about the younger generation. Most people that are older than us, me and Joey, we're in our early 20s. Most people just think, millennials or Generation Z, and they're just like, oh, they're slackers and all this and that. So it's nice to have somebody actually say that we're more productive on the flip coin there.
The people that are working with me now, the young people that are working with me now, I think are some of the best I've ever had. Of course, there's always the exception, but for the most part, I'm finding that they're really smart, that they really move quick, and that they catch on. It's just a nice bunch of people I'm working with. And they're about your age or younger.
So being in East Lansing, are most of your wait staff and people who bartend for you, are they college students or a little bit just graduated, or what's your general wait staff look like?
We have a little bit of everything. Once again, I think right now my oldest server is 53, but I had 2 guys working for me up until a few years ago that were in their 60s. One as a bartender, one as a server. Right now, I would say that we probably have 15 servers. 10 of them are of college age and 5 are older, topping out at mid-50s. And my managers are in their 30s. So if that tells you anything.
Well, it just sounds like the patrons that you attract, right? You got a nice little range of everything, so nothing wrong with that.
No, it works pretty good.
And what do you think of the social media movement? How has that affected your business, and what are your thoughts on it in general?
Social media has become a big part of our business. I'm very fortunate that my wife is very tuned into social media, and she's really good at it. I, if need be, can plod through it, but I'm not as good at it as she is. And we are finding that we use it quite a bit. I mean, in the beginning, maybe not so much, but now we even use social media to inform our customers what's going on, like in the events of if you're going to be closed for a day, or if you have a special event, or if something is going on that they really need to know about. A lot of people will go to social media looking for that information. They'll go to social media looking for hours. One of the hard parts is there's so much different social media. especially in the restaurant business, that it's kind of hard to keep all of them current. But it's a big deal, and I don't think it's going away.
No, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. That's for sure. No, it's really cool though that you were able to somewhat adapt and figure out the new ways of connecting with your clients and your patrons. What did you guys do before social media?
Well, we used all the standard stuff. You'd buy some newspaper ads. You every now and then would have a small TV package. We would use radio from time to time. We relied pretty heavily on word of mouth. Our advertising budget, I would say, is smaller than most, and maybe even smaller now that we're relying on social media. I mean, you can buy time or exposure on social media, and we do some of that, but it was all pretty traditional advertising prior to what we do now, and we've dropped off considerably with that traditional.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. What's a newspaper?
Well, we have a couple of different newspapers. One of the most popular, they call it the newspaper for the rest of us. It's called the City Pulse. And we have used them in the past. We're kind of avoiding them right now, maybe because of COVID. But we also have the Lansing State Journal. We have the college newspaper called the State News. We've used them. So there are 3 of them, maybe 4. There's another newspaper called the Town Courier. And we've used all 4 of them at one time or another. Mostly City Pulse in the recent years would be the publication that we've used.
Very cool. So can you run us through a game day at MSU?
Oh, wow. Well, is it a noon game or a 3:30 game?
Oh, well, both. I'd like to be curious because I've came to a few games actually at MSU, and it's pretty the whole city's pretty packed, especially around Grand River and the stadium and all throughout that area.
Well, game days are crazy, and the longer you've been in town, probably the crazier it's going to be, because after a while, people just know who you are. They know what to expect. They know what your hours are going to be. I mean, some people will still call looking for hours, but our game day, let's say it's a 12 noon game, it'll start at 6 a.m. for our opening cooks, 7 a.m. for our opening bartenders. We try to get open a little earlier. It's kind of hard because on game day, we like to run 6-hour shifts instead of a full 8. Some bars will even run people, they'll make them work doubles because they don't have any day business. So they don't have anybody to work days, so they have to ask their help to work doubles. So we'll run 3 6-hour shifts if it's a 12 noon game. And even at that, you wear people out. It's just so busy and so intense. We'll open at 9 a.m. and we'll be full at 9:10. And it'll stay that way. On a 12 noon game, it'll stay that way till about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Then it'll start falling off. For a 3:30 game, you open a little later, 10 or 11, and your business runs about the same thing. You don't get full right at the very beginning of that game day, but maybe within an hour you'll be full, and that goes until maybe 1 a.m. Because of the later game. We like the later games because you get a lunch hour and a dinner hour, so you get 2 shots at the food business. The earlier games, you can see hamburgers on the grill at 9, 10 in the morning. And the reason for that is sometimes people will travel 3-4 hours. So they'll be up at 3 in the morning, they'll be on the road at 4, and, maybe they'll be in town by 8 and they'll be in your place by 9. They're hungry. And so you feed them hamburgers at 9 in the morning. And that always seems a little odd, but what the heck, Game days are a lot of fun, and they're also a lot of work.
Right. What about like a 7 p.m. game?
7 p.m. games are the hardest, mostly because people have all day to get liquored up, and and you know how that goes.
Yes, we do.
90% of the people that do are they're well behaved. They control how they act. Okay, so they get a buzz on. They go to the stadium. They have a great time. 10% of them people are just they're a mess, and those are the ones you have to take care of. But those are very, very busy days. And, for us in Michigan, we typically don't get night games later in the season because it's colder. So we'll get them earlier in the season. So we'll have our patio will be hopping as well. It's like those are very busy days.
Yeah, I was gonna say for like a 7 p.m. game, at least here, and when I went to Michigan State as well, it's like you start at I don't know 11 a.m. noon, and then you end at whenever you end.
Well, and some people will get started. They'll kind of get something going, and maybe they'll go home or go somewhere comfortable and maybe get a short nap, and then start up again just before the game. I've seen that done, and more power to them. I think that's maybe not a bad idea at times. But you can go all day if you want. At my age, that's not quite. It's not quite my cup of tea anymore. But hitting those long balls is a little harder. Still have fun on game day though, if I'm given the chance.
So, Joe, you had mentioned that you went to Michigan State in the 70s. How was the atmosphere different back then, and how has it changed since the 70s up until now?
Oh my. Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think students are a lot more serious. I mean, it's not that people back in the 70s weren't serious. They were. Our generation kind of, I suppose we were considered rebellious at some point in time, but most of us turned out like our parents anyway. The people that come to school now, Michigan State at one time really had a party school atmosphere and reputation. A lot of couch burning, a lot of running around at night in large groups, especially if big sporting events. So, and that's kind of fallen off considerably. And I think part of that is that it's harder. I believe that students have to have a better grade point average to get into Michigan State now. And so they have to be prepared. Yeah, I just think that, kids are always going to be kids. I mean, like right now we've got issues. The local health department has 20 some odd fraternity and sorority houses quarantined, and 11 of the large co-ops quarantined as a result of COVID. And there was maybe a little bit too much partying going on. And they started to see a spike in COVID cases. And so she literally came down hard and quarantined all these houses, posted notices on their doors and said, you cannot have any guests. You got to stay in your house except for medical, food, and work. And so this is our second day with that. And we are seeing a lot less activity out on the street. So I guess it's not perfect, but this is an unusual time.
Yeah, the same thing kind of happened here in Toledo. Our first month on campus, a lot of the students and whatnot were just out often, and huge spikes in COVID. And Toledo's only a half to a third of the size of MSU. Right. So I could only imagine at a campus where there's 50,000 plus students, how fast COVID could spread.
Well, the university did not invite students to live on campus this year, at least for the first semester. Now, there are a couple thousand kids that are on campus. They're ones that had no other choice. They were either international students or they were out of state and really had no place to stay. And so they did put a couple thousand people into the dorms. Normally the dorms would house 12,500. So we're short 10,000 there. But a lot of people went right to the landlords in town and snapped up whatever was left to rent. And so the city itself is still pretty full of people, just nobody, but the campus is just kind of ghostly because the faculty and staff are all working from home, and probably similar to Toledo, I would think.
Yeah, most classes are remote. I know a few like specialized programs, like for an example, respiratory therapy or something, where
Mm-hmm.
there's only 20 people in a program and everybody is in the same class together. Some of those classes are still on campus, but other than those specific specialized programs, everything's remote.
Yeah, same thing here. I think the med school here and the law school here, they're allowed to meet, but for the most part, it's all virtual. Some people happy, some people not.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
can't never make everybody happy though.
That's right, especially in this situation.
Yep.
I'm just glad that my college days are behind me at this point, because it would be just terrible to be a freshman
Or a senior.
or a senior, right? Because you're either entering college and you're like, oh, let's go have a good time, party, hit the books, whatever, and
Yeah.
have this whole new experience away from home, and then you're stuck doing just online classes, which I would imagine you're still at home with your parents.
Well, some of them are. Some of them did come up and they rented apartments. But there's not enough apartments to handle the whole crew. So there a lot of people stayed home, and some didn't. But it's I don't blame you. I wouldn't want that. I've got a couple of kids that work for me that are freshmen, and they had leases, not leases. They had arrangements with the university, and so of course, they got their money back for their housing money back, but they had to go out and find a place to live because they weren't going to go back home. So, in some cases, the parents say, "Yeah, why don't you just stay there in East Lansing?"
I'm sure they're not disappointed with that.
No, I think everybody's happy with the arrangements that they've made, at least most of them.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is your favorite part about owning a bar?
I think the fact that you can have a run of days that are all the same, and then all of a sudden you can have a run of days and every day is different, and it creates unique challenges because it is different. And right now we're in a string of not just maybe 6 or 8 or 10 days. We're in a string of maybe 3 months of every day being different, and so that makes it more challenging because you're dealing with things that you never thought you would deal with. And it's this late in my career, because I'm kind of approaching retirement, it is pretty unusual to see me doing some of the things that I'm doing. I never would have dreamt that I am doing some of the things I'm doing. Like typically our patio does not require heaters. This year we decided with all the outdoor eating that we would buy some heaters, and we did, and we put them out there. And now suddenly I'm in the business of carting propane around and hooking it up to these heaters and trying to get that thing. And so I never would have thought that would have been something I would do. So yep. It's just the fact that there can be change, and you're going to be a part of it, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at least you're staying innovative, and at least trying to accommodate and make the experience for all your guests as pleasurable as possible.
Yeah, we're trying to make the outdoor season last as long as we can. So far, so good. Beautiful day today, though. Not much of a worry.
Yep. Fall time's always the best. It's just sad that there's not really any, Big Ten football going on.
Yeah, football weekends are typically, we count on them. We rely on them because sometimes in the winter you drop off a little sales-wise, and so we're not exactly sure what to expect, but we know that there's probably not going to be any football. And if there is football, it's going to be at an indoor stadium. My guess is they'll go to Detroit, and 1 week Michigan will play there, 1 week Michigan State will play there, kind of a home and away thing. because I don't think there'll be an awful lot of outdoor games. There might be, hard to say. And that's even if they actually do decide to play, which nobody's decided yet. I guess that's the decision comes in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I also heard that within this week is really the last week where they're going to give the schools the opportunity to actually choose like final 100% whether they're going to play or not.
Yeah.
And I was really looking forward to a Michigan-Ohio State game this year. Michigan's finally going to win.
Well, sure, a couple of Ohio boys, I would too.
I'm actually a Michigan fan, and a lot of people here are Ohio State fans, and a lot of my friends from home are Michigan State, so you really get a little bit of everything.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's that's the best place to be, maybe, right there in Toledo.
Yeah.
You definitely get a good mix of everything. But the worst part about being in Ohio in general has got to be the Browns fans.
Oh my! Well, can't be any worse than being a Lions fan. Holy cow!
Oh, did you watch that game this weekend?
Yes, I did.
It was. I would like to say I'm surprised, but the Lions. So
it is the Lions. It's like I was sitting with my wife, and I'm going, "Oh no!" They were up like at least 10. I thought, how many times have I seen this happen? And then all of a sudden, now they're up 3 and you're going, it's over. They're going to lose. And they did.
Yep.
Oh, well, but Stafford, at the end of the game, Stafford's still upbeat. You got to give that guy credit. He's played on a lot of losing teams and he's a pretty darn good quarterback. But gee whiz, I don't know how you can stay upbeat. I guess probably he gets paid enough to do that.
Yeah.
That's got to be it.
Yeah.
But for anyone that's listening, we're talking about Week 1 Lions against the Chicago Bears. The Lions were up, I believe, 23-7 going into the fourth quarter, and just somehow threw it away. Like, it just amazes me. Like, Lions fans, we know we're not going to have like a flawless record. We know we're going to lose games, but the way in which we lose these games just astounds me every single time.
Every single year, every single game, every single year. It's like same with Michigan. I was talking to Frankie about this before the podcast. Michigan State, whatever, the Lions, they just all find a way to lose their games. I don't know how they do it, but they find a way to lose.
Especially the really important ones. Yeah. Or if you're Michigan State, though, you'll drop a game to somebody that's 1-8. You go, what? How did that happen? And then turn right around the next week and beat somebody really good.
Yep.
That would be a Spartan way to do it.
The Wolverine way to do it would be to lose to the bad team and then lose to the good team as well.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
It was just painful sometimes. Jesus. Sorry getting off on a rant there.
No, that was fun.
Always good to throw in a little bit of football talk.
Oh yeah. So over the years, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in the hospitality industry?
I think it's important to be consistent. If you're really, really good one day and really, really awful the next, that's a little bit hard for your clientele to swallow. And so the key, I think, is to get your level as high as you're able to get it, and then try to maintain it. That's sometimes that try to maintain it thing can be pretty challenging. Because you're not a whole lot different than others in that you have good days and bad. You have streaks of when you're really motivated and maybe streaks when you're not. But trying to keep your store consistently at a high level, that's important.
For sure. And you touched on it earlier. I mean, you have people that are coming out of state, people that are living, in the Upper Peninsula, as an example, but people that travel all from around Michigan and the Midwest. And if they stop by your place one week and it's phenomenal, then great, you might have a customer for life. But if they stop by an establishment and they have a poor experience, then you might never see them again. So I didn't hit it on that.
Absolutely true.
What would you say is your least favorite part about operating a bar and restaurant?
I mean, some people like to say that you'll be married to your business. And to a degree, that's true. It is hard to find periods when you can get away from the store. Not that you can't, but maybe I think most of us in the business will take 3-4 day trips. It's just like I tried to go away for a week last week, and it ended up being 4 days. It's a little bit hard to plan long-term stuff away from your business, and that can be a little bit bad. It sure makes the 4 days that you get a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that probably goes for any person that's owning their own business, regardless of industry or just being an entrepreneur in general. It's that you have to really be committed to the lifestyle in order to, be successful, really.
Yeah, you do. It's like, most of us that own our own store will be there every day. Sometimes not for long periods. Sometimes maybe it's just an hour or two. Maybe sometimes you just walk through. But then there are other times when you'll walk into your store and you think you're going to be there a half hour, and 4 hours later you're only halfway through your workday, and it was always a bunch of stuff that you never thought that you'd be doing that day. And that happens a lot. Well, not a lot. That happens, I should say.
And if you weren't operating a bar, what do you think you'd be doing?
Oh my. Huh. Never thought about that.
we get that a lot. We always ask this question, and some people, they're like, oh yeah, my first 5 to 10 years I did this and I'd still be doing that. Or maybe they say a hobby. And then some people are like, I've owned a bar since I've been 14. Like, what am I going to do?
No, I think I fall into that category. Not 14, but but still, you do, when you own a small business, you have a tendency not to have as many hobbies as others. And so your work experience is what it is. I'm sure I could find other things to do, and I probably wouldn't take me too long. I just don't know what they are. And I'd have to experience that first. But that's a good question that I don't have a good answer for.
That's all right. Like I said, half the people we get on the show, they've been in the industry their entire life, and other people have had previous careers. So it's definitely not the easiest question to answer.
My previous career I was a pneumatic technician at Sears Roebuck, and that's a nice way of saying I was a tire buster.
Sounds professional, though.
Absolutely.
Did you do that while you were in college?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. First couple of years. Yeah. That was a good job. Yeah, I liked that job. Back in those days, I got paid $4 an hour, and it was a lot of money.
Yeah, you talked about how people nowadays are taking school maybe a bit more seriously. You got to think that's got to be the price of tuition itself is playing a factor in that, right?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, you can't just take out, a $40,000 loan and, waste the money. I know some people that have in the past. And,
I think they all have.
Yeah, it really is a lot of betting on yourself and assuming the risk there.
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't think about that as often as I should, but there is a lot of money involved. And when I was a kid, it was, you could get 17 credits at Michigan State for $110.
Wow.
I don't know, what is it, about 250 a credit now? Or
I don't even think I could call the school for $100.
Yeah, your phone bill's greater than that. Yeah, no, it's true. That's true. Those were the prices back in those days. I think the education was still pretty good, but pretty amazing what's happened. There's been a lot of inflation in the cost of college.
Mm-hmm.
You know better than me because you just got done.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you got to borrow any money, holy cow, that's scary.
Yeah.
Now, it's like, oh God, there's a car payment or more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Even working, I worked full-time a decent amount of my college and still had to take a pretty good chunk of change out for loans, even with working.
Yeah, and that's full-time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you said it was like 150, would you say, per credit hour?
No, 17 credits for $110.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I could buy a book for $100.
No, you can't. It's
So serious, yeah. The guy, because I'm in
you
my
guys
MBA.
love it when us old guys tell these stories. I know it's.
Oh no, I love it. I like having a new perspective. But I'm in my MBA program right now. It's all online, and the book for one of my classes was $112, and
112. Yeah.
that's for an online course where you're not even seeing the professor, in person. The book itself is all digital. It's not paper bound or anything like that. So
That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
It's the only way you're going to get it, though, I guess.
Yep.
I guess, but yeah, no, it's crazy the inflation around school, and also you got to think too, like how big sports have gotten, specifically college sports. I mean, Joe, you probably know this, but what is like the average or the like annual revenue for college sports? I mean, it's got to be like billions, right?
Oh, for like you're talking about the NCAA in general.
Yeah,
I want to say just college football is like $5 billion,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. So it's insane to see the inflation in that as well.
I do not have that answer, but I know that there's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we also have a great basketball program here, and hockey's coming back. So the winter sports are quite good. Women's basketball continues to improve, and so we also have the arts here at Michigan State. A place called the Wharton Center, and another place called the Auditorium, and of course the Breslin Center will entertain lots of big time bands. Wharton Center does Broadway productions, and so we got all kinds of really great stuff that help people in my business stay afloat. Now, right now, we're not getting any of that, but I suspect that'll come back someday.
Yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't think we asked you, Joe. You guys are currently open right now, right?
We are open.
Okay, 7 days a week.
7 days a week. Yep, we open at 11 a.m. On the week nights, Sunday through Thursday. We close at 10, and Friday and Saturday we close at midnight. And those hours are reduced from where we were pre-COVID. Not a lot, an hour or two each day, like it used to be 1 o'clock on the weekends, and it would be midnight during the week. So we're going. I've seen some of my competitors shorten their hours. Some of them drastically. I mean, like down to 8 o'clock at night, and I'm going, wow, I think McDonald's stays open later than that. Of course they do, but I've been kind of surprised at how everybody has a little different approach to how they're trying to stay alive in this business, in this environment. And ours is we kind of take a little bit more risk by staying open a little later, but we are smaller. We're less than 100 seats, so we can run the business with fewer people, and we can afford to take that risk. And it seems to be kind of paying off. Our later in the day business has held up reasonably well. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay. So it's worth staying open, where some of the others have decided they're going to give up on it.
Right. Yeah. Here in Ohio, most places actually they have to stop serving by 10 p.m. So most of them are just closing by 10, or even some places close by 9 now.
Are they?
Yeah. A lot of the bars, like campus bars, will stay open till 11, but for the most part, it's 9 to 10.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess there's not as many people out as there were. Maybe people are partying at home. I'm assuming there's some of that going on. Smaller groups, that kind of thing. I don't have an answer. All I know is that seems to be the direction that all of us are going, is shorter hours. But we are open 7 days a week. There are some stores that are closing certain days. We have some places in town where one day they'll be open, the next day they won't. and you can't figure it out. And I'm going, why are they doing that? Either do it or don't do it. All you're doing is confusing the public. They're not going to know what you're doing, but that I find unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And these are pretty good operators that are doing this too, which kind of surprises me.
That's unusual. Either commit to it or don't, because I feel like if you're only open for like 6 to 8 hours or whatever the designated hours are, like I feel like it's almost just like a waste of bringing everyone in, supplying all the food, operating all of the, the foods, the grill, electricity in general. I mean, you're better off just staying closed instead of just alternating.
I think, either be open or be closed. And, perhaps there are financial considerations for why these guys are doing this. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would make it any easier, though. I think I'd try to be as consistent as I could. That would be my philosophy.
So I have 2 questions, Joe. One, you've been in the industry a while. Do you know a lot of the other bar owners in the area?
Yeah. We in East Lansing, because we were such a party town, and I mean, it used to be you could almost call downtown East Lansing at night the Wild Wild West. It was nuts. I mean, we had a lot of bars, a lot of restaurants, and the relationship with the police was horrible. The relationship with the city was bad. The relationship with the university was terrible. And so we decided about 20 years ago that we would form a group of bar and restaurant owners and managers, called it the Responsible Hospitality Council. And basically, we decided that we would all try to live by certain standards as to how we were going to operate our businesses, and that we would try to present a unified front where we could improve the relations with the city and the university. And down through the years, it's worked. Now I'm going to answer your question. We all meet once a month, and we all know each other, and we all are competitors, and we don't give out secrets, but we do talk about things in general that we think are important to the industry. And there are social things too. Afterwards, there's a social hour where we'll get together and have a beer or a glass of wine or a cocktail or something like that. But I would say that we probably know each other as well as any group of bar and restaurant owners in a lot of places.
That's good to hear. And then going off of that, if there was, this might be hard since you guys are all so close, but if there was 1 or 2 other bars you could recommend in the East Lansing area, what would they be and why?
Oh, places that I would like to go to?
If it wasn't the Peanut Barrel.
Yeah, I like Beggar's Banquet. That is one of my favorites in the downtown. And there is what I like to call our sister bar and restaurant. It's not. It's a place called Crunchies. They kind of hold down one side of town. We hold down the other. We aren't exactly the same, but we do run similar kind of businesses. And the owner there and I are, we go to each other's stores all the time. And so I would say Crunchies and Beggars would be the 2 that I would recommend. Now, I am older. I don't really need to go to the boogie bars. Some of them are not even open right now. Rick's, Riv, Harper's, Dublin just opened. Part of that is because you got to sell food in order to be open. Those places don't sell food. Mm-hmm. They can be open outside for no more than 125 people, but they're just choosing to lay low right now. But those aren't places that I would go. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying it's not my cup of tea,
Understandable.
Yeah. You guys might love them. I mean, they're, it's like there's a lot of activity. They're high energy. There's lots of people, typically, not now because you can't do that. I mean, Harper's found that out last June when they tried to put a couple 150 people in their nightclub, and I don't know. I guess it ended up 180 folks got COVID in one way or another. Nobody really got too sick that I know of, but it caused quite a stir, and we were all surprised. I think Harper's was surprised. I think they didn't really. I don't think that they ever intended to cause anybody any harm. It just was, wow, what happened, and how did that happen, and boy, did we learn a lesson. And I think all of us did. We all learned a lesson about what we can and can't do.
Right. When I was in East Lansing, I've been there a few times. It's kind of hard to remember all the different bars and the places you go to because I remember checking my phone every time I went there. I had to have walked over 10 miles. It's just such a big city, and you just want to go to all the places. And maybe you go to your friend's dorm, and then the stadium, and then a bar, and then wherever else. And it's like it seems like every time you're there, it's pretty long walks.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is long walks. I mean, if you're going from the stadium to downtown, that's like 15 minutes, and I'm going to guess darn near a mile. It's a pleasant walk, but it is a long one. And the dorms are all spread out. They're not all that close. Our place is in the 500 block, and I would say we are about 3 blocks from the main downtown area.
It's just giant compared to Toledo. I mean, everything here is pretty close to campus. Other than that, you're going to go to like downtown Toledo, which you're probably going to Uber or drive.
Yeah, which is because Michigan State kind of has like the campus ingrained to the city where like we have our campus area here, but it's not where like Michigan State where there's 100 restaurants and bars within, a half mile any which way of the university.
It's a little bit more spread out in Toledo.
Yeah, the downtown area and the campus aren't like merged together, kind of like like they are in East Lansing or Ann Arbor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
the campus here is a bit more isolated. Isolated in the sense that it's mostly you have your engineering campus, and then you have like your main campus with all other facilities and buildings, and then beyond that, it's mostly I would say student housing.
Yeah, student housing, and then there's probably 5 bars on campus, but nowhere. Nothing insane.
Yeah, even like 5 is a stretch for like bars that you could go to any night of the week, really.
Well, there's I don't know. There's probably about 20 of us in downtown East Lansing, I would think. I haven't counted them lately. I think we did count seats once, and there was like 5,500 seats. And on a football Saturday, they're all full, and in some cases there'll be lines, depending on the time of day and that sort of thing. But you can almost always count on the popular places that there'll be a wait to get in.
Right.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back to the little council that you guys had started for all of the restaurant owners in the Michigan State area.
Sure.
That being said, so obviously they're competitors, but I feel like that helps tremendously to have some formality or some organization to it, because it'd be better as a city that you guys represent your nightlife or your food industry as the best you can in order to obtain as many people that are going out. Because, I mean, bar crawling is certainly a thing where you can go from one restaurant to the next, as opposed to people just overlooking the MSU night scene, right? So I think that's a pretty good thing you guys have going there.
The thing that makes it work and keeps everybody tolerant of each other, and not necessarily the bar and restaurants tolerant of each other, but the city and the university, is that they participate. We have at least one, and more often than not, 2 or 3 representatives from the university at every meeting. We'll have somebody from the police department, both on campus and the city, that'll be at every meeting. There's somebody from the planning department, the people that put together, that make a lot of decisions on in the city of East Lansing. That group is represented. And then there are groups that have issues with substance abuse and that kind of thing. We invite them, and they come. We all get along. I mean, sometimes I'm amazed that we can, but we do. And we get to see a perspective that we might not ordinarily see, because you can kind of get into a bubble as to what you think is happening. And you'll go to one of these meetings and you'll go, whoa, there's somebody that thinks a little differently than me about this. Maybe I should give that some consideration. It works pretty well for us. We've had this group now for 20 years, and it's still going strong. And I'm not saying that we don't discuss business as well, because we do. And we'll talk about things like upcoming events. We'll talk about home football, home basketball. We'll talk about concerts, festivals in the downtown area, how we're going to prepare for them and what we're going to do, that kind of thing. So maybe in the long run, it makes us all a little bit better at what we do.
And Joe, I've kind of seen the same thing happen here in Toledo, where the police department kind of works with like the bars and the university, and they all kind of work together just to make it. It's not like to necessarily enforce anything, but just make sure it's safer. You know, if there's a big party going on, there might be a cop or two sitting outside, and it's not like they're gonna go and drag people out of the party or wait for people to come out, but it's just more of a safety thing, if anything.
I think that's an awfully similar to what we've got going on here, and it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still have fun.
Of course.
Yeah, always. So yeah, next one I got for you is there a hangover recipe? And if so, what is it?
Sleep. Either that or just get up and go. And sometimes you can sleep it off, but for the most part, most of us can't. If you've misbehaved a little, you just kind of got to bite the bullet and get after it. Somebody once said to me, says, if you're going to run with the dogs, you can't pee with the puppies. And so I've kind of lived that philosophy.
I'm going to have to take that quote.
It's fine.
That's a good one. But I understand sleep and a little bit of water and everything, because if you know you have something to do the next day and you go out, like you said, you have to wake up, bite the bullet, and just get through your day.
You don't have to work, and but you still have some important things to accomplish. I'm going to say a little hair of the dog would be just fine, and I would treat it with a spicy Bloody Mary. That would be my solution. I don't do that often because usually I have to be productive in a different way the following day. I think the key is not to get a hangover, but oops.
Yeah, and going off of that, do you guys serve Bloody Marys? And if not, where's the best place in town to get a Bloody Mary?
We serve Bloodies. We think ours are awful good. We've kind of been experimenting with them lately, trying to kind of up our game a little, so that and we're not succeeding great. We don't have a lot of success with it, but we're kind of working at it a little bit at a time. Pre-COVID, we had put together a recipe for a Bloody Mary that we put on a specialty cocktail. But I think Beggar's Banquet has a great Bloody Mary as well. I think some of the more fine dining restaurants, I think, would be known for their Bloody Marys. Ours is pretty good,
Bloody Marys get pretty wild these days. I've seen some, and I've had some. They have lobsters, pickles, olives, shrimp. It's like some of them are just insane.
We were working with olives, pickles, bacon, a little hunk of cheese. We were there. We had it on the menu, and it was like we had talked ourselves into doing it, and we did. And then just as we were launching this whole cocktail menu, that's when COVID hit. So that came to a crashing halt. Now we have just reintroduced it, our cocktail menu, and it's kind of moving a little bit slower, but it's a little bit difficult. You can't put too much on a table right now, and the QR menus work for us real well, but we chose not to do the QR menu with liquor or beer because it changes so often, and so we are using paper. But you can't really use too much paper because there's, it's individual kind of things. But so the cocktail menu with the Bloody Mary is it's kind of on the back burner. Still there, just on the back burner.
Well said. So if I was to come to East Lansing. What is your favorite hometown restaurant? Not necessarily a bar, just anywhere in general.
Oh my. Hmm. Well, I'm going to give you the name of a family restaurant. It does have a bar, and it's called Coral Gables, and it is as iconic a restaurant as you're going to have in this area. They have been around, I'm going to guess, since Prohibition or a little after. And it is a family restaurant, but it's storied and iconic in that it used to be East Lansing was a dry town. And this restaurant sits just outside the city limits. And at one time, it was a huge show bar along with being a restaurant. And so there are lots of stories from back in those days. And nowadays, it's not quite as exciting as what it used to be. But that would be the restaurant that I would want to send people to. But you also have to remember my age is playing into this as well. It may not be something that you would enjoy.
We're not too picky with our food, and that restaurant sounds great. And going off that, in some restaurants and places that have been around for a while, have you heard or do you have any ghost stories that you would like to tell us?
What kind of stories?
Ghost stories.
Ghost stories.
It's always it's a question we like to ask because some places that have been around for a while, they have some pretty crazy stories.
Well, I would think that the one place that comes to mind for me would be Ellis Teco. It's a Mexican restaurant. They've been around, I think, about almost as long as the Peanut Brill has been around. And it used to be a restaurant that was at a lower level, no windows, all dark. It was very popular. Still is very popular. It's nowadays it's like, it's up above ground, even above ground to the point where they have a rooftop cafe, which is pretty cool. But back in the day, they would be downstairs underneath an old building on MAC in East Lansing, and it was kind of a creepy place. But the food was so good, everybody went there anyway. The landlord for that place, when their lease came due, tried to hit them hard with a huge increase. And the guy that owned it, Art Dela Cruz, had saved his money and done quite well and said, oh, to heck with you guys. I'm just going to move my whole restaurant. So he did. He got out of the basement and he went about a block and a half away and moved the restaurant over on Ann Street, which is it's real nice now. But the thing that everybody talked about back in the day was that the old Ellis Teco, when it was downstairs, you never knew who you'd be sitting next to. And you never knew if it was going to be a person or if it would be a critter.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
Where is one place that you've traveled to in the past that you would recommend for others?
Where do I like to go?
Yes.
I like to be entertained when I travel. And so I am fond of places that offer ready-made entertainment. I love Las Vegas. I love Key West, Florida. I love Fort Lauderdale. When I travel in Michigan, I like Traverse City and I like Petoskey. There's always something going on. You never lack to find something to keep you entertained. And so those would be the cities that I enjoy the most.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with any of those, especially Vegas. I mean,
Vegas is my favorite. Yeah, a little hard to get to Vegas now. Not quite sure what's going on there. They don't have any shows. And I was down to Firekeepers, which is one of the local
casino.
You've been there?
Yeah, once.
Yeah, and it's they're doing the same thing all the rest of us are. They're distancing and masking and that sort of thing. They're even a little bit rougher than we are. If you're sitting at a video poker bar there, you have to wear your mask all the time. And if you want to take a drink of your drink, you can remove your mask long enough to take a drink, and then you got to put it back on. And it's like, oh. And nobody complains. At least
Yeah,
like,
I understand the mask thing, but when you're at a casino or something, just trying to enjoy yourself, it can be a little. I don't know if annoying's the word, but it just makes it not quite as enjoyable.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, we all believe that. It's like I understand the importance. I also am frustrated by it, just like almost everybody I know.
Yep.
And sometimes you'll forget it, and oh my God, I forgot my mask. It's kind of like back when you forget your phone. Oh shit, I got to go back home and get my phone.
Yeah, I've done that so many times where I'll get in my car and I just like drive halfway to somewhere. I'll be like, oh my God, I don't have a mask. I can't even go in, and then just have to drive back. So
I just hope I have like a shirt in my back or something to wrap around my face.
I just keep a mask in the car.
Yeah,
I've gotten to that point now where I have a pack of masks in my car. There's like 20 in the package. So yeah, it should be good for a little while.
You'll be good for a while. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. I learned my lesson finally after the 5th or 6th time.
Oh God, we all have, and maybe we're not done learning. We'll see. There could be more surprises ahead.
Oh yeah, 100%.
What would you recommend to anybody that is entering the industry?
It's a lot harder to buy now than it used to be. It's so expensive to buy. When I bought my first place, I had $1,000 of my own money, and I was able to borrow a fair amount, and I could use some family money as long as I promised to pay it back. But nowadays, it's so expensive to get in. I don't know. I mean, you almost have to be well-financed, and banks typically don't want to loan people new to the industry money. So you've got to have a connection there. I don't know as if I could advise anybody other than there are important things that you need to do if you want to be in our business. I've seen a lot of people try to get into the bar and restaurant business that had no idea what they were getting into. They'd never worked in one. And it was just they liked the excitement that they saw, and they felt that it was just a really fun thing to do. And then they got in the business and they found out, oh my God, this could be an 18-hour day. and there's no end in sight, because you have those days. And they get so surprised by that. So it's like, you need to know what you're getting into. And I think that's advice that one would give to anybody that gets into any business. And you need to figure out how to be well-financed. And that is something that I have no idea how to tell people or how to give them advice. That's over my head.
I mean, it's a good answer nonetheless. I mean, you really can't, go 0 to 100 on something if you don't know where the breaks are, right? You don't know the operations. You don't know how things work. It just seems a little ill-advised to jump into the restaurant industry if you have no prior knowledge.
You really do need to understand what you're getting into, because it can be very time-consuming, and it's important that you know that, because you could make a large investment and lose a lot of it, if not all of it, if you get going down the wrong path. I don't want to be a naysayer here. I'm sounding a little dull, but it is important. I think that's important.
Well said. And wrapping up the show now, what is one piece of advice or like a life lesson that you would like to share with the guests or with the listeners?
Oh boy. Well, behave yourself and tell the truth. On the few occasions when I haven't been truthful, I've always regretted it.
That's pretty good advice. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And we're looking forward to coming up to East Lansing.
Frankie and Joey, I've enjoyed chatting with you. If you're coming my way, give me a call. You got my number. And I would be very happy to entertain you guys.
100%. So wrapping this up, where can we find you on socials? And do you have any questions for us?
Well, you'll find Facebook, peanutbarrel.com. You'll find us on Instagram at The Peanut Barrel. And you can find us on the web, peanutbarrel.com. And all three of those places will send you right to where we are. And if you're coming down Grand River, we're right across from Berkey Hall. There's a brand new art museum there called the Eli Broad Art Museum. And it looks like an aircraft carrier. It's just a beautiful stainless steel building that's kind of modern. And we're catty corner from that right on Grand River Avenue.
Very
Perfect.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks.
All right, After Hours Nation, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to stay updated, you can check out our site at afterhourscast.com. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday morning for our next episode. After Hours Nation, stay thirsty, my friends.